It's eligible for RRSPs, tax-free savings accounts, other common ones we see, LIRAs, lifts, all the different types of retirement savings plans you essentially can bring over as an investment in Nest Capital.
What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and in today's video, we're going to be sitting down with Nest Capital and discussing exactly what is a MIC, a Mortgage Investment Corporation. Now, a lot of real estate investors have heard about MICs, but they don't necessarily understand exactly, can I get a mortgage from a MIC? Am I lending money to a MIC? You can actually do both, and we're going to really dive into that in today's video. So let's just get into it. What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and I'm really excited for today's video where we catch up with Chris from Nest Capital. Hey Chris, how's it going?
I'm doing well, Matt. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, and it's great to see you again. If you guys aren't familiar with Chris or Nest Capital, they were actually one of our first sponsors way back for OREC 2018, the very first kind of large-scale networking event that I ever hosted. And while obviously we can't necessarily do in-person networking in 2020 because of COVID, quarantine, social distancing, and all that good stuff, I thought it would be great just to check in with Chris and Nest and really just catch up on everything. But before we maybe move into what's going on today with Nest and yourself, Chris, why don't you mind, or if you don't mind, just explain for the audience first, what is a MIC, a Mortgage Investment Corporation?
Yeah, absolutely. And then to preface all that, we definitely love real estate. We do it in many different forms. I work with Roger. He's my father. Started real estate investing in 2008. Introduced to private lending, and I'll talk about a bit about how that differs from a mortgage investment corporation. But we started doing that in 2013, fell in love with lending money, and continued it and opened it up for friends and family and the general public. So what a mortgage investment corporation is, it's a regulated structure whereby it's a lending company and a management company. So what it broken down in plain English, it's a pool of mortgages that the fund manages and a pool of investors' funds. So in our case right now, we're just shy of 11 million in the fund, and we have over 120 investors. So as an investor, your investment spread across the pool. That differs from what we still do a little bit of, and kind of started us in this path, is private lending. And that's usually when you have your own nest egg, if you will, your savings, and you want to put it on one particular mortgage. You're likely through a mortgage broker or agent that you work with. In that case, your investment is solely on that one mortgage. We're a mortgage investment corporation. It's more structured and regulated, which is good, and spread across the pool of mortgages in the fund.
And so as you touched upon, originally with your history with lending, you guys started off as private lenders. And for a lot of people, that usually starts off with maybe doing a second mortgage from their RSP or holding a small first place mortgage as a bridge loan for someone while they're working on a project. What made you guys decide to kind of grow this into something bigger than just you doing the occasional mortgage?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and honestly, it started from a close family friend. That I think the line that she asked was, "How do I get in on that?" And a light bulb went off. Meeting with Roger over the holidays back in 2016, he said, "I really think there's a business here. How do we open it up to the general public?" So we started off with our own funds, our own network of friends and family, and now it's gone out to the general public. So as a business that essentially was asked of us to start, what better way to start a business than that way? And it's been a great experience for our investors and ourselves throughout the 4 years that we've been doing this.
Yeah, and so Nest officially started back in 2016 then, is when you guys launched it?
Yeah, we launched it April 2017, so we're in our fourth, calendar year here, or operating year here. But the idea of it all started in December 2016, yeah.
Awesome. And then so let's talk Let's dive a little bit deeper into the differences between private financing. So like when you guys did that first mortgage, maybe as a second mortgage or a first mortgage for someone, versus really what a investor that chooses to invest with a MIC, what are the real differences there? Obviously, there's a big one in regards to how hands-on you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it really kind of comes down to a couple of things. When you're private lending on a particular mortgage, or maybe you have many out there, the funds that you lend out there, you're likely to have a strong understanding of how a mortgage is evaluated. So that you have to have kind of that a little bit of background there, as well as how do you source that mortgage itself. Maybe it's through a mortgage broker or agent. But to gather that much knowledge and know-how does take some time. For us, we did probably 65 mortgages over 4 years and really took the time to learn the business and really put together our lending strategy that Nest Capital operates today. There are some benefits, of course, to private lending, and hey, we have it in our background, our history, and there are some challenges as well. Things like, what do you do when a mortgage is paid out, or what do you do when you only have minimal amount of funds? That oftentimes it's tough to match that on a particular mortgage. And how do you evaluate and do the management or administering of that mortgage? Things like collecting, missed payments, all that sometimes can be a bit of a burden or headache for those that are new to private lending. But with the Mortgage Investment Corporation, all that is handled by the MIC manager. And with our experience, it's been a great process and putting those policies in place that make it very rewarding for investors, as well as for us to make sure that we're stringent lending parameters.
Yeah, and I'd love to explore that a bit more because I think a lot of investors have heard of mix, but they maybe have never really dived deep into it. So, and correct me if I get any of this wrong, but my understanding is mix will usually have a specific set of parameters or types of assets that they choose to lend upon. Is that true? And what's the case with Nest?
Yeah, absolutely. So each MIC has its own, different flavor. Some focus solely on residential first mortgages. Others might have a more of a mix of commercial. And some may be geographically, in Western Canada versus ourselves in Ontario. So when we looked at starting Nest Capital, we kind of reverse engineered it in the sense that we wanted to have the targeted return be 10%. And then how do we go from there to actually produce that? So our experience in mortgages prior to starting Nest was residential second mortgages. So on average, 100,000 on a residential property, and the person needs it for a year, sometimes two, and they're looking to pay off some credit card debts, if you will. So we had some strong experience in that regard. So when we created our lending parameters for Nest, our ideal mortgage is anywhere from 20,000 to 275,000. Strictly residential. We don't do commercial, no development, no construction loans. The reason or thinking there is if there was the property is vacant, sometimes it's tough to offload a commercial property than a residential one. The other parameter that we look at is it's across Ontario, from southwestern Ontario all the way to Ottawa, and then pretty well Barrie and Kawarthas. So we're not a GTA only lender. We try to sprinkle it across geographic locations. So a couple of things we look at when we're evaluating a loan. One, obviously the strength in the appraisal. We've seen ones over the years that clearly is not going to be a good fit for our own funds as well as the funds of our investors. So the recent appraisal is very important. We also get all of these mortgages are sourced by licensed mortgage brokers and agents. So we don't work directly with the public. It has to first be put together and evaluated through a mortgage broker or agent. So we'll see a bit of history on their income, their assets, for the borrower, what they're looking to pay off, what's the story behind it, what are they, maybe their use of funds, and then what's their plan on getting us paid out. Typically, we do a 1-year interest-only loan, and our rates for borrowers are around 12%, which at first may seem high, but when you think about what we're accomplishing with the borrower at the end of the day, we're helping them get out of that high interest debt, cash money, and other credit card debt, lines of credit, and we're improving their credit over time. And usually after the first year, they either sell their home or refinance with their first mortgage company. So in summary, it's residential mortgages on average about 100,000 across Ontario. No commercial construction or land deals, and that's what we focus on. So we work with probably about 15, 20 different mortgage brokers and agents where they're looking at getting private financing to help their borrowers at the end of the day.
Got you. And then on the other end of the spectrum, when it comes to working with Nest on the investor side, is there I guess, first, I'd love to hear, is there a general avatar of the type of investor or the type of investment that people make in regards to investing with Nest?
Yeah, so we've been doing this for a number of years now, and we've kind of seen, everyone, all different walks of life, but we've seen 2 particular cohorts that have stood out. One being the young professionals, maybe they're real estate investors, and they own a number of properties, and perhaps they have an RSP that they're want to get into in real estate, and in this case backed by mortgages. Or it could be another young professional that's been saving for and trying to build their kind of nest egg to ultimately put it on a down payment on a property. So we've seen the kind of younger group that's planning for a future purchase. A good chunk of our investors could be what we've seen as pre-retirees or retired individuals that are tired of the stock market. They're tired of being a number in the eyes of their financial advisor and looking for an alternative way to earn a return. What's nice about Nest is it's really not a complicated algorithm. At the end of the day, we're lending money on mortgages in our backyard here in Ontario. So people like that. They like the simplicity of it. So we've seen investors kind of in that age group or that kind of demographic, invest to help them with their monthly cash flow or help kind of further improve their retirement income and also growth of where they're at today. So different cohorts, but really what we've tried to do is open this up to not just individuals that are high net worth, for example. So through our registered dealers, we're able to essentially get investors from all different walks of life. The minimum investment being $1,000, so pretty well anyone can jump in there. Our average investor does about 90,000. But that takes some time to learn a bit more about the fund. We see a large chunk of them do additional investments year over year. So that's exciting for us, but also exciting for them to think about how can I further experience a good return on my investment.
And so you touched upon RSPs there a bit. So people can invest in Nest through their RSPs. Can they also do that with a TFSA?
Yes, they can. Yeah. So a good way of doing that and helping investors understand how that's done. So we're a private fund, and investing in a private fund is permitted through one of the trust companies in Canada. So there are a number of different ones we work with, community trusts to Olympia Trust. And we help the investor transfer and move over the funds from, say, their current RBC TFSA. So yes, we do offer, it's eligible for RRSPs, tax-free savings accounts, other common ones we see, LIRAs, LIFs, all the different types of retirement savings plans you essentially can bring over as an investment in Nest Capital.
Awesome. And then, so what else does someone need to know? Like, do they reach out directly to Nest if they're looking to invest with you guys, or like what's that actual process look like?
This is nothing like any real estate event. I can promise you that. Because it's not just real estate. This is real life shit. We're not here to give you fish. We're here to show you how to fish. You guys have heard of that analogy, right? Because this is a complete disservice if we're just giving you the fish. Be specific. What are you going to do?
I will retire my mom, I will have 12 properties, and I will get my first wholesale deal in the next 2 months. Hi guys, my name's Marshall. My goal is to really grow my real estate business. Cash flow trap seems to be the way to help. Cash flow trap!
You probably have your own versions of people trying to pull you into their reality rather than pushing or promoting the reality you're choosing to live in. And to me, if you don't understand your why, it's so difficult on Monday morning when you get back into your normal world to be able to go against that friction. I knew that getting control of my financial life meant that I'd be in control of every aspect of my life.
I lived 43 years of my life as a debt man. Because I lived in pain and debt. Until I came to this event. Finally alive. Like, I'm rich. I'm richer than all of everybody around me. Why? I may have less around me from a material standpoint, but I'm rich inside. Because I found my tribe. Cash flow tribe!
And I'm learning actually how to build a business for people that have built businesses. Right? I'm not stressed out. I'm happy. My wife's happy. My kids are happy. I'm not broke anymore. Life is good.
This is the room. This is where it ends and begins for me. I'm happy to get to this room. We all have a very similar journey. We've all tried and failed, tried and failed. So when I just come to this room and you guys are here and I get to hear these stories and know that I had a part of it, I'm good.
Awesome. And then, so what else does someone need to know? Like, do they reach out directly to Nest if they're looking to invest with you guys, or like, what's that actual process look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first step is, first set up a call with myself. You'll probably see a Calendly link available, and on our website, all the contact details are there as well. It's just a good starting point to learn a bit more about who you are, what you're expecting of an investment, answer any questions that you may have. So that's a typical first step. Then what are the steps to invest? We've made it very, very simple and easy for investors. So we work with a number of different registered dealers. Think of them as your stockbrokers for a private fund. And they go through a it's a regulated step whereby you have to qualify to invest. So you may have gone through this as setting up an account with your bank. They're going to verify your ID. They're going to ask questions on your income, your assets. And the thinking here is these firms that we work with, they're registered by the Ontario Securities Commission or the other provincial commissions. And it's a way to make sure that all the necessary steps are being done. So it's called suitability or know your client. From there, that process, it's online, which is great. You don't have to get a whole ream of paper and print it off. It's all online. It takes about 15 minutes. You have a subsequent call with one of their dealing representatives. That's about another 15 minutes. And then I help walk you through moving the funds if it's registered, or if it's cash, or if your business has cash. It's very easy to do so. So we've seen investors, invest the same day. But if you're looking at transferring it from your current financial institution, there's usually some weeks there, probably 3 or 4 weeks to move it over. But that's what the whole process looks like to invest in a mortgage investment corporation such as Nest Capital. Must be through one of our registered dealers.
Got you. And this applies to any Canadian or just Ontario residents?
Yeah, any Canadian. We do have investors in British Columbia as well. We can open it up to other provinces. With Quebec, there's a language requirement for us to file our offering memorandum, so we're happy to do that. But we kind of need a big enough demand to do that. Other markets that we're looking forward to making this available is Alberta, even in some of the maritime provinces. So the key there is feel free to reach out, whether you're in Ontario or BC. We've been happy to have a conversation with you. The process is the same for each of the investors in different provinces.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll throw contact information in the video description down below for everyone that does want to book a call. But what are some of the common questions or concerns you find investors have on maybe that first discovery call that maybe we can chat about today?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the questions is minimum investment. So 1,000 being the minimum. Most people do probably first investment 25,000 and above. The average would be about 90,000 for investors right now. Another question we typically get is, am I investing on one particular mortgage, or where are these mortgages located? So right now we have just over 100 mortgages in our pool. They're spread across Ontario. So I'll give you an example. We might have a second mortgage of 80,000 in London, Ontario. We might have another one in Ottawa or Kingston, or even GTA. So we try to spread them across in that regard. Another question we get is there a lock-in period? How long do I have to invest? And I think that's because when most people are looking to invest in a private fund, sometimes that's kind of one of their terms or conditions. It is meant to be kind of a mid to long-term investment, and I wanted to kind of expand on the reason why. We're placing new investors' funds on mortgages, and they're 1 year interest-only mortgages. So if it's someone kind of coming in and out, it's tough to manage on our end. So we ask for a commitment of at least 2 years. There are redemption fees in year 1 and 2. But if something were to arise and you need that as a safety net, then we'd be happy to do that. It's just that redemption fees apply. But most people would do this for. We've seen investors right from the beginning that still have their money in, but really meant to be a kind of a mid to long term investment. Another question we may get is, what's been your experience in the last few months? In this kind of market, we started to see, I guess the kind of communication with investors has been always important, but especially from March onwards, We've made a really good effort reaching out to each investor, keeping them updated on the fund itself, its performance. So one kind of metric there that we looked at is how many or what's the percentage on the pool of borrowers that have asked for deferred payment, and that month over month has improved since April, and right now it's about 4.6%. Good news is hasn't had an impact on the investors' returns. We've kept that consistent. Whereas other mix might operate in a way that their monthly or quarterly payout to investors could be more variable and fluctuate. We've made it our goal to have it a targeted annual return of 10%, and historically it's been like that and been paid out monthly. So that's another question we get. Another one we get is how high do you lend on a particular property, right? So in the industry, that's called loan to value. In our case, our average right now sits at 76%. And what that looks like as just a formula, it's the first mortgage plus the second mortgage divided by the recent appraised value. So we're always looking at the recent appraisal. If we get a new deal that comes by our desk and the appraisal is outdated, you'll have to order a new one, Mr. or Mrs. Borrower, because seeing the current value of the home is important. So on average, about 76%. We do go up to 80 or 85 on particular mortgages if the file shows that it's good. Especially with nowadays with pandemic, we're also looking at the types of occupations. Are those people currently employed? What are some things that we might arise? So we're digging even more into their application or their kind of credit history as well.
Awesome. Yeah, so it's great to hear how you guys have grown over the last 4 years from 2017 to over 100 mortgages, over $10 million under management. What's the future hold for Nest?
Yeah, we're going to continue to grow. We want to grow at a conservative pace that allows us to stay true to our lending strategy and overall investment plan. So we want to keep getting excellent quality mortgages in our fund. I imagine in the next couple of years we'll be at 25, 30 million, and we want to continue to pay our investors that 10% return. So we're going to stay true to residential mortgages and focus in Ontario. There's so much demand here. And especially across Ontario. Lots of great communities from southwestern Ontario to Ottawa, Barrie, and surrounding areas. So we kind of made a name for ourselves, both from the perspective of investors and borrowers across the province. So the overall goal, I would say, is 50 million, and to do it in a conservative way, as well as a way that we can manage that so the experience is consistent for any new investors as well as current.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that perspective and just really everything today. Because again, like a lot of investors, I've came across mix, I've heard of them, but haven't really spent a lot of time to sit down and learn about them. Before we wrap up, any other items that come to mind that you'd want to share with the audience in regards to either mix in general or Nest Capital?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to again highlight our experience from, and it's not meant to steer any interested investor away from becoming a landlord. If anything, do it. It's a wonderful business, and lots of Canadians and others have done a really good job of building their wealth that way. This is just another flavor to real estate investing, and really it's one of those things that there's no real book about mortgage investment corporations. If there is, let me know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's an idea for us to put one together. But it's when you look at investing in your RSP or TFSAs or cash, oftentimes people think right to mutual funds or talk to their financial advisor, which is great. But what are some ways that you can be doing that that's not on the stock market? as well as in a way that's kind of structured or pooled. So, if you'd love to learn more about alternative ways of investing from someone who has been a landlord in Ontario that's lent out their money, private lending on single deals, and now is offering it to a pooled investment to the general public with a minimum of 1,000. Happy to hear from you and share our experience because I think that's an important takeaway for investors. We've been there, we've tried many things along the way, and this is one business that we fell in love with.
Yeah, having spanned really that spectrum of real estate investing, I think really does give you a unique perspective and just a lot of experience in all the different facets of real estate investing. I know for a lot of the active investors that I know these days, most of them have a dream of someday not being active and essentially taking a lot of the profits and equity that they've built up and then really transitioning it into some sort of lending aspect where they can try and achieve that 10% annual return. There's just something really nice and clean about that number, right? Like you can quickly do the mental math and you're like, okay, that sounds pretty good. So yeah, I know that on my YouTube channel over the years, almost every single landlord that I've met, that's eventually their exit plan is build up their net worth, build up their equity through the more active streams of real estate investing, and then eventually looking to transition into that more passive income. But as well, also great for those that are wanting to get into real estate, but maybe just don't have the funds quite now, but they see 1-2 years from now that they'll be in a position and they just want to put that money to work until they get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of options for different stages of where you're at, and happy to hear any questions from anyone that comes through our website or through Matt's page. Happy to have conversations on this at the end of the day. We joke, Roger and I, that some people are into sports or playing golf. When it comes to real estate, that's our sport. That's what we're always thinking about. So happy to answer anyone's questions.
Yeah, I'm definitely a kindred spirit on that front. So again, Chris, just really appreciate you taking the time to sit down, talk to us both about mortgage investment corporations in general, as well as Nest specifically. We'll throw a link in the video description down below for anyone that does want to learn more about Nest, or if you want to book a call with Chris, again, we'll have his contact information down below. Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day. And maybe we'll get you back on the channel once we get a bunch of questions from the audience.
Perfect. I love that. And I really appreciate the time, Matt. It's been great.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks again to Chris from Nest Capital for really just explaining to us exactly what is Nest Capital, but also what are mortgage investment corporations. Hope you guys got a lot more perspective, and let me know in the comments whether you'd like me to do a deep dive into how you potentially could set up your own MIC. Now, it's not for the faint of heart, and it's going to take a lot of capital and a lot of work because I've looked into it, and we originally decided it was a little bit too much work for us. But if you guys are interested in learning more about that, let me know in the comment section down below. Otherwise, if you want to reach out to Chris and learn more about Nest Capital, whether you're looking to borrow or lend, we're going to throw contact information in the video description down below. Jump over, talk to Chris. He's a great guy. And if you enjoyed this video, smash that like button. Hit the subscribe button if you're new to my channel. I'll see you in the next video.